hour right now. This is one of the more anticipated BLG segments
Fired up
we've had because we read out BLG's tweet on the show a little bit ago. John's not in full agreement on it, so we'll bring him up now. Let's go to Brandon Lee Gowton from bleedinggreennation.com. Make sure you read all his work over there and follow him on X at Brandon Gowton. He joins us right now. BLG, how you doing on this Wednesday morning, brother?
Yeah, I'm fired up. Here I am, ready to go.
Coming in hot, BLG. I loved it. The NFL, by the way, I'm going to read it. I'm going to say, I'm going to stop when I agree and when I disagree.
Okay.
The NFL is filled with losers and cowards, which I agree with, by the way.
Correct.
It is filled with losers and cowards who are demonstrably afraid of the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, I believe BLG, and obviously this is in relation to the Tush push, which is likely to be removed from the game shortly. I believe fans and media alike have been gaslighted over this subject from the standpoint of the stupid way the NFL handles things with their loser and coward abilities, from the standpoint of blaming things on safety. They always use that. They pull that down. Oh, safety this, safety that. They don't care about anything. However, I maintain, and I don't know why the NFL does things the way they do things, that the rule asking from the Green Bay Packers, the proposal to ban the tush push, failed. That failed back at the league meetings, the annual league meetings on whatever it was, April 1st. It was 16-16. They tabled it. And they had to take that off the table because it failed. So at least there's 16 non-losers and cowards. And they had to rework it and make it much broader. And what they're voting on today is removing pushing as a whole from the game, which, by the way, will help the Philadelphia Eagles at points on defensively. I saw one clip of Green Bay pushing in a runner from inside the 5-yard line into the end zone. That's now illegal. That will now be illegal. So I think, and everybody is tweeting out the NFL's voting on banning the tush push. Technically, that's not true today. So I think to a certain degree, people are getting gaslighted here.
I mean, but it's all where it came from, right? To me, that's at least
catalyst. Zander said it was the catalyst. That I agree with. That I agree with 100%.
Yeah, the genesis, I mean, there's more things, but the most prominent thing I would say as it relates to it probably getting over the goal line is, the Mark Murphy Q&A thing that he did originally and spoke out against it and talked about Bart Starr as if that is relevant at all in the year 2025. It's just
the Ice Bowl. Yeah.
It's just so pathetic. I mean, this is a guy too going out, he's going to be replaced this offseason, the new president. This is what you want your legacy to be, your last thing you do, is just be a total coward and clearly drive this effort to outlaw play and target a certain team. I mean, that's just I'd be so, if I was a Packers fan, I would be really embarrassed. I really would. I think that's if the Eagles were doing this to the Packers, I would be calling the Eagles out for that. I think it's a really embarrassing look.
Well, let me say this. And it's hard to do, and I get it, because I don't disagree with you on that. The original proposal, which I said on the show numerous times, it's not passing, and it didn't pass. And that's to the point where I don't understand why the NFL does things this way. Now the competition committee is behind the new proposal. And now the health and safety committee, which is bullshit, is behind the new proposal. Why doesn't the NFL just do it that way and say, all right, this is what we want? Why do they get teams involved? That I agree with, because you have this room for, the Packers are jealous of the Eagles and this and that. Why is Detroit involved with the seeding thing? Didn't affect them. They were 15-2. They were the number 1 seed. Why are they even involved? If the NFL wants to get this stuff done, and they clearly want to get this done and remove pushing from the game, why don't they just do it the right way? And then I don't think you have these problems.
That's a good question. Why don't they do it the right way? You could ask that about a lot of things. I think that's the problem. But yeah, it's just pathetic. I think, we've talked about it a lot. I think it's a bad look. And it's very funny to me.
Look. Yeah.
Well, it's something I bring up with fourth down decision making a lot. Like, you have this like macho, quote unquote, like macho sport, macho league, with these guys these coaches prominently, but organizations too. Like, a lot of the messaging is like, be tough, be physical, don't be afraid. And it's like, the things that we have to ban are a quarterback sneak, and going for it in fourth down is really scary. Like, it's so pathetic to me. These like grown men are just scared of these little things.
I agree with that from the standpoint of the safety stuff. Like, it's like, yeah, it's complete contradiction. Like, we want to be tough. You hear Nick Sirianni talk about it all the time. Tough players, bully, they bullied people on offense last year, basically. And yet everything is, we got to have these goofy things where Guardian caps, where Jason Kelsey's making fun of it with extra, bubble wrap on top of it. And it's a complete, in a lot of ways, modern football is a complete contradiction of everything. Because on one hand, they're talking about safety, plays that don't even exist. Oh, but this could happen. Well, of course.
That is so intellectually disingenuous. Like, that's just not a reason. That's a what if is not a reason. That's just not. That's so baseless. You could say that about anything. I could make up anything. What if this happened about this? Like, there's no basis.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, BLJ, for sure.
I was on the field. I tell this story all the time. My worst moment covering the NFL. I was on the field when Corey Stringer collapsed and ultimately died. And I tell that story because I'm old all the time. People do not believe this, but I swear to you it was true. Before Corey Stringer passed away, they did not let us as media people bring water onto the practice field.
Wow.
Didn't let us do it. We couldn't sit down. We had to stand the entire time. It was a macho football thing. Even Andy Reid, to Doug Peterson, BLG won't let anybody sit down.
Yes.
On the sideline. It was that way for you. And they would discourage guys from drinking water.
It's terrible.
I get the standpoint, and obviously there's legal indemnity issues and all that kind of point, but they seem to only pull out the safety card when they need it for something. They don't really care, because and the back end, they're trying to get 18 games and this and
then
that.
The kickoff. Yeah, they're making the kickoff, more of a thing.
Yeah. So all of that is true. But I do think that, but at the end of the day, the only place we differ, the NFL is filled with losers and cowards. But I think they want this out of the game for more than the Philadelphia Eagles, the league.
It does feel like they just found a loophole, though, John, to get it through.
I always
hear what you're saying from a more of a macro perspective, but that's what it feels like they just found the loophole.
I know the league loves the Eagles. I know it. They love the Eagles because of their success, the passion of the fan base, the ratings that they draw. They don't dislike the Philadelphia Eagles, especially right now. They love any success story. But I brought it up. And you might remember the Ravens Patriots game, the formational tricks that Bill Belichick used. Now, they banned that right away because somebody came up with a loophole, and they said, you know what, this is not what we wanted, this is not what we meant, and they closed up that loophole immediately. Immediately. The problem here is they removed this rule for God knows what. For 80 years, there was no pushing on offense with professional football. And they removed it in 2005. And nobody took advantage of it until the Eagles. And it took a long time. And so they were going along, whoop-de-doo, not that big of a deal, whatever. And then all of a sudden, somebody found the Belichick loophole. And they said, this is not what we meant. This is not what we want. And from that standpoint, I don't really have a problem with it. throughout the eras of Walter Payton and Emmitt Smith and Steve Young and all the great quarterbacks and yeah, all these great running backs, there was no pushing. The game was fine. So I think, and there were a couple guys, I think Art Stapleton tweeted out something. The Eagles are not good because of the tush push. They're good because they have good players.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be fine. So that's my broader view. I don't think the league has anything against the Eagles. They do want this out of the game, and I don't think it's a bad thing to have out of the game. But it's got nothing to do with safety.
Right. Yeah. There's no evidence of that. You can't just say precautionary because that again,
if the tush push didn't exist, though, John, will you agree or disagree with this? If the tush push wasn't the catalyst,
no, I already said it was the catalyst.
No, I know you're saying it was, but would they still want this out of the game if the tush push wasn't a big part of the last couple seasons?
If somebody else did the tush push and it came to the level that it's grown up to because of the branding, they would want it out. In other words, if Buffalo did it and they've done it successfully to the level the Eagles did, if New England did it, if Kansas City did it, whatever team you think they like, Dallas most notably, if they did it, they would still want it out of the game. All I'm saying is it has nothing to do with the Philadelphia Eagles as a franchise. The success and the fact that they branded it, and it wasn't even the Eagles, but the fact that it became a big thing that and Frankie Louvu happened, they don't want it in the game. And I don't disagree with them from that standpoint, from that small standpoint. And I don't think it should be in the game. I think it's a detriment to defense. And I think Philadelphia, and I said this yesterday on the show, and I want your thoughts on this, BLG, has always been defense first, defense first, defense first. It's a defensive town. How many times do we hear that? This is going to help your defense. Nobody else can push either. So they can't shove people into the end zone. So it's going to help Big Fangio. Look at it that way.
I mean, I agree. They're going to be fine because they're just going to do the sneak and not push. And Jalen Hurts will probably be really effective on that. A couple things that like just stick out in my mind again of why this is, I think, problematic is that the timing, considering that why wasn't this big push happening after 2022? Or like, why didn't we get it done? If everyone truly felt that way, it shouldn't happen then, like you kind of talked about with the Patriots and how that was rectified. And then it wasn't an issue last offseason after the Eagles collapsed, as it's been brought up many times before. Somehow it wasn't an issue when the Eagles were worse. I'm not saying the NFL was out to get them. I don't think that's the case in terms of the NFL, the league office. But I think teams in the NFL are absolutely out to get them in certain ways or bitter or sore losers. I think there's some of that going on, clearly. Yeah, I mean, I just think it's a weak look, as I've said again. And I think that like everyone used to talk about how great Tom Brady was at the quarterback sneak. Somehow that wasn't an issue. I know it's a little bit different, I guess, in terms of the pushing, but still, even so, that was like, oh my gosh, that was like revered as this amazing thing. And then Jalen Hurts does something, if not identical, very similar. And it's interesting how the conversation is entirely different. It's not even close.
Well,
I
would say the difference between, I would argue the difference between 2022 and 2024 wasn't the losing of the Super Bowl versus winning of the Super Bowl. I think it was Frankie Louvu. I think it was that.
That's such a bad reason to me, though. Like he was committing penalties. Like how is this? And it's so weird. Like Washington fans have taken this as like a point of pride, even before the ban. Just like that, he was doing something good.
No, because I think it highlighted. Not from. Yeah, he was committing penalties, but he was trying to, he was trying to time the snap.
Mm-hmm.
And the Eagles found out pretty quickly he was trying to time the snap. So you had this back and forth. Louvu wasn't going to stop trying to time the snap, and the Eagles weren't going to stop trying to get him to jump offside because they knew he was timing the snap. And it became this ugly version of football on this largest platform. So that's what they're thinking.
But it's like they're rewarded for that. And I don't think they should be rewarded for that. And also, like, who's to say you won't be doing the same thing now if they're trying to sneak now?
Do you think we'd be here right now? Like,
Probably not.
But then
Right,
again, yeah,
yeah.
like that's so dumb to me. It's like the Commanders were rewarded for that. Then they shouldn't be rewarded for that.
Well, I don't think the league looks at it as rewarding the Commanders as much as, oh, this happens. So I always one of my harshest criticisms to the NFL for years has been it's a very reactive league. It's not a proactive league.
Of course.
They react to things. And they reacted to this ugly situation on this big platform, NFC championship game, and how many people were watching that game. And it just came across to casual fans as like, what is this nonsense? And from their standpoint, because, the whole big push in the NFL right now is international, because they pretty much maxed out North America.
Well, then they should like the rugby angle.
Yeah. So, it's a very difficult sport to translate internationally because people there don't grow up with it. And it's a goofy game if you look at it from their perspective. Like, everybody understands basketball. Everybody understands hockey. They grow up with it, with soccer. They call it football. They grow up with it. They don't grow up with NFL American football. And there's so many weird rules, and why are they stopping play and this and that? Mm-hmm. And I think we all take it for granted because we understand the game, and they're trying to grow the game. So I think it's much bigger than people realize. That's all I'm saying. They're not trying to pick on the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, where the NFL deserves a lot of blame for is, again, the way they handle these things. But I would argue there are 16 teams that voted to not ban the tush push. So are there jealous teams? Yes. Clearly Green Bay is one of them. No doubt about it. But there are 16 teams that said, no, we're not fucking doing this. It's not the Eagles' fault. And that will never pass. They would not have passed that rule and that proposal, I should say. Mm-hmm. And they had to change it to make sure it wasn't singling out one team. And I think that point is at least somewhat of a positive, even though there's a bunch of issues with the way they went about it.
That still feels like Frankie Louvu got rewarded, or the Commanders got rewarded. Like, I understand what you're saying from a bigger perspective, but if you do boil it down, you mentioned that we might not be having this conversation if that doesn't happen. And it did happen, and now they're not going to have to deal with it anymore. So, like, in the micro, it is a reward for what the Commanders did.
Well, that's fine, but I've been talking about banning, pushing for 10 years, personally. I mean, I'm like, why is this in the game? Why did they take it out of the game? Because I'd go back to 2005. That was the exact year of the Bush push. I don't know if you remember that, BLG, Reggie Bush at USC. USC was in the great Pete Carroll run, best team in the country. Reggie Bush, Heisman Trophy winner. Matt Leinart, best quarterback in college football, yada, yada, yada. Mm-hmm. It was a big game. Notre Dame, USC. It was a great game. And they had the ball at the 1 yard line, and they ran a quarterback sneak, and Matt Leinart was stoned. I mean, stoned. And the game was at Notre Dame, I'm pretty sure, and people were going nuts, and Notre Dame won the football game. And all of a sudden, they didn't blow the whistle, and here comes Reggie Bush out of nowhere, and he pushes him in the end zone. And at the time, that was illegal. You weren't allowed to do that in college football. And they didn't call it. USC won the game. It was this big controversy. They eventually changed it because of that, and put it in the game because they didn't want to admit they were wrong and fucked it up. And the NFL want that route. And I'm like, you don't want this in the game. For years. And I'm older than BLG, so I'm not. When you would run the football, it could be Jim Brown, it could be Emmitt Smith, and blah, blah, blah. Any great running back, Walter Payton. And your forward momentum was stopped. The play was over. They would blow the whistle, and that'd be it. And you would go to the next play. And all of a sudden, because they're afraid of instant replay and they're afraid of video, well, let's let the play go. and you got all these people running in and pushing and shoving. Boy, yeah. I've been advocating for this for 10 plus years to get this the fuck out of the game like it was for 80 years. And nobody complained. Nobody was like, they needed pushing in the game.
Nobody complained that it was in the game, though, until the Eagles came along.
Yes, because nobody took advantage of it. That's why with the Belichick stuff, it was immediate. For some, nobody figured. And by the way, the Eagles deserve credit for figuring out a way to take advantage of it because it's their job. It's Nick Sirianni's job to win football games. His job is not to worry about what the aesthetics look like. His job. So I don't blame the Eagles at all. They did a phenomenal freaking job with coming up with this. But I do think from a league standpoint, I don't have a problem with them wanting it out of the game. I don't. But I get, that people, I mean, the Eagles are successful at it. So they're the poster child, just like Belichick was, just like Bob Gibson was in baseball, Wilt Chamberlain was in basketball. And Eagles fans should take pride in that in a weird way because they forced them to change the game by their success with the Tush.
Part of me wonders if they just use Green Bay because they don't have a damn owner, and you just kind of use that team. And
maybe,
nobody, there's nobody that it falls on. There's no owner it falls on, and they can do it that way. But anyway, I digress. I don't want to, BLG, I do want to talk about some other things with you other than the Tush push here, which probably is outlawed. Nick Sirianni to you is what, BLG? What is he worth? Is he a $20 million man, a $21 million man? When you think of Nick Sirianni as the head coach, what do you think of when it comes to him in this league?
We'll never know, right? Because apparently these are like state secrets getting even the years of the deal. Yeah. That's insane. No one knows, apparently. Total mystery. Why can't we know that? Like, why? Especially when in the past, it's a pretty like standard 4 or 5 year deal. It's like typically
I mean, if I were speculating, I would say it's 4 to keep him at 5 years total.
Especially he had the year left, right? So they probably just tack on 4. And then sometimes there's options in there in the past. I remember Doug Peterson had an option that I think they like picked up shortly after they had won the Super Bowl. I mean, he's worth whatever, the prices, the market prices, the going rate. I mean, especially when there's no salary cap for coaches, not really worried what he makes. And I think, the top coaches are making around 20 or so.
20, right? Andy's at 20 reportedly. Nobody really knows.
So I'm guessing Nick's at least like 15. I'm guessing. I don't know. But yeah, it's hard to know with the lack of information we have.
If I'm Clint Dowdle is Nick's agent. If I'm Clint, I'm asking for 21 million. Why wouldn't I ask for 21 million?
Sure.
I don't know if he's getting it. I think the Eagles would consider it a win if he takes a little bit less than Andy Reid.
Yeah.
But I think Sean Payton's number 2. Like, I got to get more money than Sean Payton. He's 18.
Yeah. Maybe. It's tough, though. I mean, those guys have such longevity. I don't know how much of that is a factor. I know the winning, obviously, is incredible and high and hard to argue against, but maybe...
Yeah, that's true. That's true,
just the tenure of it all. Yeah.
Yeah. Were you surprised,
Nick?
When I was listening to Jalen Hurts yesterday, I felt, he's been through a lot of changes, we all know, dating back to Alabama, really, never mind the pro, but constant changes with play callers that we've talked about ad nauseum. Last year, BLG, I think it was a little bit more worried. Kellen Moore coming from outside, inside to the organization. This time, I felt a calmness. Kevin Petullo's been there for, since Nick got here. Did you sense that, or is that just me? Because that's what I was like, this guy's calmer than he typically is when all this change is going about.
He doesn't still seem like thrilled about Kevin Petullo, I would say. But, I guess there really isn't too much Jalen seems to be thrilled about, including winning the Super Bowl. Apparently,
Yeah,
didn't really look like
true.
thrilled after that game.
I don't
He's
think
happy.
anybody did. AJ's like,
That's true.
I'm not fulfilled.
That is true.
Devontae.
So
you guys think that would be a bigger problem? Like, I agree with you, John, where you're like, it's good to want to be focused on the process, but if you don't care, like to the level that they don't care, does it take away the desire to get back?
I don't think so, because they're so competitive. Like, they're just worried about.
Right. They're competitive people at heart. They want to win every game.
Yeah, they're just worried about beating the guy in front of them. You know,
you have to have a balance, though. I think at some point of like joy. Nick Sirianni has even talked about that. That was like a big theme last year. I know Zach Berman has done a good job with that angle specifically. Because I think a big thing that went wrong in 2023, and I've always talked about this in terms of like people were criticizing Jalen's leadership that season and how they didn't do it, in 2022. But like, I think there's just times where more levity is needed at some point. You can't just be like head down, like, miserable existence unless we win like all season long. I think there's times within a season, within a given, structure of the week where you kind of need that levity. And remember, you're playing a game and it's supposed to be fun at some level. Obviously there's high stakes, there's pressure, and you want to be great. And maybe there's something that just like, you look at Michael Jordan, who Jalen obviously idolizes and has now spent time with. And like, I wouldn't say Michael Jordan's like a very happy person. And that is like, I think well evidenced, and even in like his Hall of Fame, his speech, like, and maybe and even Tom Brady, like, I don't know that Tom Brady's really like a happy person.
No,
I think something probably you might have to sacrifice your happiness at some level to be great, but at some level, again, as a team leader, at some kind of element, across the board, it can't just all be all work and no fun. There has to be some kind of fun angle to it.
Yeah, I generally look at it as a positive, because I think it's a positive when from AJ's perspective, at least he kind of figured, he said he thought he would be fulfilled, and he didn't. Yeah. And then he kind of figured out that it's about the journey, yada, yada, more than the destination. And from that standpoint, I think it's good, because it's like, well, this guy's right back on board to try to win again. Whereas I don't want the satisfied guy. To your point about Michael Jordan and Tom Brady, they were never satisfied.
Yep.
So I overall, I think that's a positive thing.
Agree.
For the head coach, BLG, well, and this was bad timing for Greg Rosenthal. I've been bringing this up. He happened to do, former NFL media guy, he happened to do on his show, and I'm sure he had no idea Nick's contract was coming, because it was done before. He had a coaching draft. He and his co-host were going back and forth. So they were picking current NFL coaches, and Andy Reid was number one. I forget the top 2 or 3, but anyway, long story short, Nick Sirianni, number 15. What? I think there's a lot of talk about Jalen Hurts not getting credit for his resume, winning playoffs, NFC Championship, Super Bowl. And I think people talk about that a lot. Nick Sirianni gets no credit. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's too low. Exactly where he should rank. I think you can debate that, but I think we all know that would be too low. And I think part of why, I'm guessing, trying to get into Greg's mindset here, you put someone like in the middle like that, is you kind of don't know what to do with them. Exactly. You don't know fully what to make of them. And obviously Sirianni has won a lot, so you have to make something of that. I think it's fair. It's not fair in terms of it's too low of a ranking. I think the feeling of totally not being totally sure exactly what he contributes to winning, there is like a basis for that, in the sense that I think a lot of the things that we praise Nick Sirianni for are a little bit nebulous, right? At least as it compares to in contrast to other head coaches that we can say the play calling is great. Whatever. Things more you can point to. Dan Campbell, like the aggression is great. Nick Sirianni, it's not as, I think, always easy to see, but it comes to a point where you have to zoom out and look at how much they've won.
Yeah.
And say, obviously, he plays a part in that.
Good word for it, actually.
And then the last thing I'll say is that I do think there could be, I think some of the biggest Sirianni supporters from what I see online, like, I think there are times where I think there's a little bit of like, okay, are we drawing a line here between correlation and causation? Like, I think some people can also go overboard and being like, he drives this whole thing. And I just don't think that's not true. I mean, it's like the front office, it's the talent. He's part of it, but he's not one or two on that list.
Yeah. By the way, breaking news: the Lions have withdrawn their proposal to modify the NFL's playoff seeding system, which basically means they did not have the votes, and that's what happened. I always find it interesting. Nobody figures out that nothing's getting voted down for the most part. If they want something and they don't have the votes, they're going to table it. They're not going to vote it down.
Right.
And that's the case with the seeding. Up next will likely be the Tush push. It's likely going to, and I'm breaking my own rule. They're going to remove pushing from the game, and that's how it will go. Any other takes from Jordan Mailata, AJ Brown, Jalen Hurts? Anything stand out to you from yesterday, BLG?
Yeah, I really liked what Jordan Mailata had to say, and I think it's kind of been like underrated how much of a leader he's become on this team.
Yeah.
Obviously, he was a team captain for the first year last year, and obviously he's going to be the starting left tackle. But the phrasing and the framing that he used of like, hey, I'm telling these rookies, like, if you come for my job, basically, like he views it as like a competition at left tackle. Obviously, he fully expects to win that, and he will win that. But he said, like, if you're better than me, I'll vouch for you. And I believe it when he says that. Now, obviously, I don't think they're going to be better than him, but I believe that the mindset that he has kind of seems to have really, and it's really incredible to think too, for a guy who'd not come up in a football ecosystem, for a guy who didn't play football until coming here. I think like Jason Peters, sorry, and Lane Johnson have like really rubbed off on him, and guys don't have to do that, right? Like Jordan Mailata could have taken that tutelage and only used it for himself and been a great player. And that's not even like he's a terrible person for doing that. Like that's fine. That's acceptable. It's not like crazy for him to do that. But to go above and beyond and then want to help, Cameron Williams and Miles Hinton and guys like that, like that's a next level kind of thing here. And that shouldn't be underappreciated. Like that is real.
And I love that Jordan brought up everybody. He brought up Kelsey, he brought up Isaac, he brought up
100%
Vaitai,
Chance Warmack.
Chance Warmack got some love.
That's a good name.
Chance Warmack. Yeah. So I mean, that's something because it's counterintuitive to want to help a guy who's gonna try to take your job.
Yeah, but it is actually good advice for the young guys. Come in there every single day and work like that. That'll give you the best chance of success wherever it is.
Yeah. That's leadership. He's a leader, and I think that's really important, especially like as Brandon Graham goes out the door and you lose something better. Jason Kelsey a couple seasons ago now. Yeah, I think that's really important to have.
All right, at Brandon Gowton, he's no loser, he's no coward. He told you what he thought about these NFL reactive people. Read them at bleedinggreennation.com. One-stop shop, as I always call it. Each morning, I'm sure they'll have coverage of the news today from Minneapolis. Does a great job there and does a great job with us, and we always appreciate it at BLG.
Thank you, BLG.
See you guys.
BLG joining us here on Birds 365. Great job from BLG. All right, coming in, giving the heat to the NFL, all right, for singling out the Eagles. I like it. It was a good conversation that you guys had there on the Tush Push. We'll see when that vote comes down today. Thought both guests were great today, John. Differing opinions from the two guests, which is always a good thing to have.
Yeah, I mean, I love when people stand by their opinions. That's what makes good talk radio, good streaming, what we do here. So, always appreciate people with strong opinions and the ability to back it up. That's the key part. Anybody can say stuff, but have, the knowledge, the institutional knowledge to back it up. Always fun to debate people like that, and BLG's as good as they get.
Yep, no doubt about it. He was great. Mike Gill's been great too. Mike Gill's been stirring the pot on the show the last couple of weeks, which has always been good. So we appreciate him joining in. Appreciate BLG. What do you think, John? Is this the pushing going to be removed from the NFL today?
I think so. Interesting note just coming out from Adam Schefter. Jason Kelsey is in Minneapolis on behalf of the Eagles to lobby NFL owners. So the Eagles are going all out. Try to get as many.
Lobby them the other way.
Yeah, to try to keep it in the game.
Oh, baby. It's heating up, John.
So we'll see. But once the competition gets committee gets behind it and the health and safety committee, that's a tough battle.
Is today the last day? So like it won't be able to be pushed to tomorrow.
No.
It's coming today.
No, it's coming today. Well, again, they're not going to vote it down. They're going to table it if they don't have enough votes. And that's the Eagles' strategy, I would imagine. You know, players don't seem to care. So I don't know why they're going all out, but, you know, it has become.
They're showing, John.
It is become, Mike brought up a good point. It has become a branding thing that's been very successful for them. So maybe it's a business aspect of it as well.
Part of it too. That is part of it. I mean, you see Tush push shirts and stuff,
stuff
everywhere. So, you know, Pumper says the NFL head doctor is involved. Tush push is cooked, fellas. If he's involved, yeah, it's cooked, no doubt.
The health and safety committee already voted to.
Yeah, they've been involved.
So, it's an uphill battle, but they're doing everything they can.
All right, let's get to these super chats, John. We got to run through them here before the end of the show. Kimbo says, with J-Mac out on flag football, it'll ruin the sport. Yeah, I think we all agree on that.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to watch that.
Unfortunately, I've said, you know, somebody brought that up to me. I tell it all the time, years and years ago, and I laughed at them. I no longer laugh.